the plan, But anyway, the idea is every section I consider as semi-independent. So I call it philosophy 101, Chinese philosophy 101, or Chinese philosophy and plus 201. So if you are the first time, I think you should be able to understand, at least get most of the contents. If you have been through for a long time, and I believe you will get more things, or you can share what you know. So before I start, and then I'd like to know, is anyone read the introduction and you want to share what you get, or you want to me to, or you a certain area you want to have a further discussion? And anyone willing to share, or anyone willing to share what you see on the introduction part? Klim, please.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I have one note on the introduction, and that has to do with, I think, on the last page of the introduction, where the author brings Hegel into the picture and mentions this particular phrase, the labor and culture of the spirit. So, and then also there's this term, second harmony. And that sort of led me to think further and perhaps beyond the classical boundaries of what we perceive to be the Taoist philosophy, because I think there's an attempt there to merge the two tendency. One, the sort of the tendency towards the natural state, towards the peace, the harmony, what is perceived to be the original harmony, the harmony of the child without knowing things, right? And then after a person grows up, goes through all sorts of the experiences of life, matures somehow, and then kind of re-achieves the similar state. But as it is pointed out, that second harmony is, while it's somewhat similar to the harmony of a child, it's also a different state. Now, my comment to that is that I'm not 100%, while it is true, I'm not sure if theoretically I would 100% agree with that, because again, speaking from the Taoist perspective, it almost, when reading this whole introduction, almost there doesn't seem to be a place for anything that's not natural. In other words, let's compare this to an ocean or a sea. Yes, we all like the serenity of the ocean, the beautiful views, the sunset, and so on. But then, if we think about the ocean that's in the state of storm and chaos, well, it wouldn't seem to be unnatural from the Taoist philosophy as well. So anything, let's compare that to the state of war, or the disconnect, the strife, all sorts of concept development of knowledge by the human society. Wouldn't that be also natural?
Okay.
So that's my point.
I'm glad that you bring up this one, and then I like this part, and I totally agree with the author. So let's talk this one to the end, because that's the last page, and I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about this part. I think that's important. Personally, I feel that's important, and okay, we can discuss more to the end. Thank you for sharing. Anyone has anything about what you read you want to share? Okay, so here I'm going to just briefly go through what we have. 7 chapters, right? From the happy excursion, or the equality of things. The third one, fundamental for cultivation of life. Human world, evidence of virtue. That's Zhuang Zi's moral theory. Then the great master teacher, which is his religious view. Okay, and the last one is his political view. So it makes the 7th chapter as the complete philosophy for Zhuang Zi. So Zhuang Zi as a book and also as a person, like this here, okay, usually I separate. Zhuang Zi means that's the person, or Zhuang Zhou, that's his name. And if I put the spelling together, usually means the book. So that's the way I separate them. So this book has a 33 chapter, and we only cover 1 to 7. And then the rest, usually we believe 1 to 7 is written by Zhuang Zi himself. And the outer chapter from 8 to 22 is written by his disciple. And the 23rd to 33, we believe, is written by later scholar. Okay. So that's the, but all these 33 combined together, we call Zhuang Zi as a book. And here, the Fung You Lan translation, it covers 1 to 7. So that's, we go through most of the time this year from 1 to 7. So quickly, I just go through the book. It's long time produced 300 BC. So it's about 200 years after Confucius, 2,300 years ago. Okay, that's the idea. And a lot of commentary and then a lot of translation. So I'm not going to go through this one because I show every week. And then I will have the PDF file post on the internet, and you can see this part. And personally, I think I organize on each chapter. I put the breakdown or structure of this one. I think that's my invention. Let's put it this way. I don't see anybody do this way, and I find out using this way, you can read Zhuang Zi in a more productive way or organized way. That's what I'm thinking. So, Alex, you have a comment, please?
Yeah, actually, just a quick question. Is there a free version of this book online? Because I actually, yeah, I didn't get to read the book.
It's you look at the the page. I have the link.
Oh, okay. So there is. Okay, thank you.
But strongly recommend to buy it. But anyway, okay. So just
yeah.
Yeah,
I want to go through the I guess the meetup with you and see if I want to buy it.
yeah. Actually, it's a very good book. I have one. Okay, so it's a very good one. Okay, so I put each one. I put a summary. Okay, and then I'm not going through, but I try to organize on each chapter, and then I think it will help you. That's the way I understand all this one, chapter 5 and chapter 6. Each week I work on each chapter to chapter 7. Okay, so let's start from here. That's the beginning, and then Fung You Lan, the author, he start with so-called, he called a two-world view. Okay, so basically he's talking about the Taoist world view. Okay, so he's Fung You Lan, the author. First thing I like to mention is when I put the blue color, that means I think that's a specific Fung You Lan's opinion. Okay, so if I put the purple, okay, that means Jason, myself, that's my opinion. So here is Fung You Lan's copy. So basically, he talked about the history of philosophy. Generally speaking, there are many two ways to consolidate the point of view. He talked about we all face the science view and the religious view. Okay, so see, and then interesting is Fung You Lan see how philosophers see this word in two different ways. One way he called pragmatic, and another one he called neo-realistic. I know probably a lot of people would disagree or say that's strange, but let's forget about this. Let's try to understand how Fung You Lan analyze this thing. And it take me like read a few times to understand why he is talking about this. He put the pragmatic view, including Kant, okay, because Kant look at the phenomenal world and the noumenal world. And then he also includes William James, Henry Bergson, and then all these people, because it would be a little bit strange to put the Kant and the Bergson and William James together. But Fung You Lan's point of view is for these people, Kant, James, Bergson, they see this world as dualistic world. They all have the science world, they have the religious world. Okay, science world is all the science, the deterministic world. And the other world is, you can call it the spiritual world, religious world, or you call it noumenal. They have the soul, God, freedom, all these kind of things. So that's a dualistic world. That's Fung You Lan's understanding. And he said they have another kind of philosopher. He used example is Spinoza. As you know, Spinoza is famous as his monism point of view. Okay, so he see everything is one. Okay, substance, that's God. So in Fung You Lan's point of view is Zhuang Zi, the Taoism thinking is the naturalistic and the science, and then the other word is mystic and the religion. In Zhuang Zi's point of view, he has two views together. All right. So that's Fung You Lan's assessment about Taoist worldview. So that's the part. I think it's a little bit strange and then a little bit hard to go through this one. But I think that's important, to share. That's why I put it here. Okay. So before I go through, and any comment or question on this part?
I know there's often a distinction made between philosophical Taoism and religious Taoism. Is that the distinction they're talking about here, or are they?
No. Thank you to bring up this one. Okay, so all this one are talking about philosophical, okay, not religious Taoism. Because
that's what I thought.
religious Taoism is, I will talk about this a little bit later, because that's, thank you to bring up this one. Okay, so yeah, I think that's important. When Fung You Lan talk about religious, he is not talking about religious Taoism. Okay, he talking about the theology point of view. So more about metaphysics when he talk about religions. So Fung You Lan write this one. Okay, let me read it. Among the Taoist classic, Zhuang Zi book, this book, I put a purple. I like the new spelling, Zhuang Zi, and Fung You Lan use the old spelling, this one. So please note it, they are the same words, same meaning. Is not only instructive, but also interesting. Zhuang Zi was not only a philosopher, but also a poet. His philosophy is like that of Spinoza. His style is like that of Plato. I put a quote here. I think he meant, Fung You Lan means like Plato, because he think about like the Platonic dialogue. And I don't see Zhuang Zi's philosophy has any similarity to Plato's. And I add the Nietzsche's, the spoke Zarathustra, because I think Zhuang Zi's style is very similar to Nietzsche's style, especially the spoke Zarathustra. That's my opinion. And he expounded the various abstract principle of Spinoza with concrete illustration and poetic expression. So I put this quote here is I just like to share how do I prepare these 7 chapters. I list a few names here, and then I just want to let everyone know there's many ways to read Zhuang Zi. And number 1, Fung You Lan, okay, the way basically he was trained in Colombia, and he was the student of Zhuang Zi, and they went back to China, and they, so he has a very solid Chinese literature, philosophy, classic background, and he learned Western philosophy, and then he do the translation. So his point of view is more on the Western philosophy point of view. That's the one I use for 1. And then another reading, just like Steve talked about. I also watch some of his video. His contemporary, Guo Mingyi. He is a kind of a lecturer in the religion called Yiguan Dao. That's a religious kind of associated with Tao, religious Tao, and some Buddhism. A few of my friends is a dedicated believer on the Yiguan Dao, and they like Guo Mingyi. His lecture basics, the basic is talking about Zhuang Zi, but from the religious point of view. And the other 4 people you can see, they all professor from NTU, which is National Taiwan University, and you can see the same book in the National Taiwan University. They have many professors teaching at the same time, and then they are from the different point of view. For example, Cai Biming, unfortunately, they probably only have the Chinese version, and there's no English version. Cai Biming, her point basis about maintaining a good health, traditional medicine, this point of view, how to take care of yourself, how to live a good life, that's the way she teach. Du Baorui, that's another young lecturer or professor. I think he's in China now. He is totally from the fundamental Chinese philosophy point of view to read this one. I follow him a lot because he helped me understand a lot of texts. And this one, Jin Jiaxi, that's another very interesting professor. He's probably over 80 years old, and then he taught us literature. Okay, so he read this one as a literature. So that's a different way to read. Fu Peirong, Professor Fu, he is reading this one as a Chinese classic. I didn't follow him a lot, but basically I follow him because most of his studies about Confucianism, but he also teach Taoism, teach Zhuang Zi at the same time. So I just list the reference I use, and you will see if you are interested, after join this meetup and you want to do your own reading and you want to pull out some YouTube video, to learn something, you may surprise, there's many different ways to read this text. And if you know Chinese, you will find out the text itself, you can read as a literature, and a lot of people read as a literature. So that's how they have a different way to read this text. So, okay, so that's the reference. And okay, so I list the 10 point here. That's Fung You Lan list the 10 point. And I think, okay, here, let me put this one in the chat. So this one on the bottom I put here is the let me see where's the chat. So I kind of organize all this one together, and then so that's the playlist in YouTube. So if you are interested, you can go ahead to watch. So before I go into the 10 points, and then if you have any question, Steve.
Yeah, you were talking about the very many ways to approach the Chuang-tzu stories. I don't know if you'll find this interesting or apocryphal, but I have because most of his writings are stories. They're literal stories. This happened and there's lessons behind it. I have a book of cartoons, manga, essentially, that are Zhuangzi's stories. I used to use that read them to my kids when they were little. So there's yet another way to enjoy Zhuangzi, and it's on point. It's telling the stories just as he did, and another entertaining way to read it, I suppose.
Yeah. It's hard to say it's a good way or not good way, right? Depend on how you want to achieve it. And that's a lot of a cartoon version of Zhuang Zi, since they have a lot of story. And then I know in Taiwan, I saw a lot of this kind of book, because one reason is that's easy sale. So that would be the good one to start it, to read it. And if you know the English version, and then Steve, you can post on the chat, so we can share, or you can share with me, and I'm also interested to.
I'll grab it off the shelf over here and maybe jot down the title and author.
Yeah, that'll be great. I also interested to see it. But again, watch video, read the original, read the translation. They all have a different experience, and then I would not say they all equal. Alex, please.
Yeah, actually, I also want to recommend a book that's actually really popular in America. It's called The Tao of Pooh. Have you heard of this book before, by Benjamin Hoff? And
No.
I've been reading it, and it's a really fun book, and it's a really kind of an easy way to get into to Taoism. And yeah, that's
There's also the day of Piglet.
Right. I think two books are really fun. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
actually they have, it's kind of a good entry point to kind of get into Tao, because it's written from like a very kind of from Winnie the Pooh, the dialogue between Winnie the Pooh and the author, and Winnie the Pooh's friends. They were talking about Tao, and it's really interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you for sharing this. Actually, what's that? December 2nd. Okay, I'm going to talk about a few stories, and about, I think I pick up 6 famous stories to share, and then you can put in the chat if you heard of, overheard, or you thought that they have some story interested. Please let me know. Okay, so I will try to include it. Because they have many stories, just like Steve talk about the cartoon, talk about many stories, and then I'm going to pick up the famous one, and then we'll share the original, or the word by word translation. Because if you do it in a cartoon and they do it in video or something, you may lose some insight. So I will show the original Chinese text and with the direct translation. So we will have a better understanding of what's there, and then we can follow by a few discussion and what we get. So kind of like exercise. So December 2nd, that's I'm going to do. So I'm going to, for the 10 section, 10 point about Fung You Lan summarize. Okay, so I will say this 10. Okay, let me show here. 10 points. 10 points. I will say from 1 to 6 is in the book. Okay, kind of it's common understanding about Zhuang Zi's philosophy. 7, 8, 9, and 10, I believe that's Fung You Lan's opinion. And then we will see how you see this one. Okay. So first, Dao and the De. Okay. So Fung You Lan, I summarize a few points. I think that's important. But if I miss something, and then you are welcome to share. So first, he talking about Dao is something, is not something transcending the world. It is the world. It is everywhere. It is the whole. I think that's important because if you read the Confucians or analysts, you will know Confucius also talk about Dao a lot. And are they talking about the same Dao or different Dao? The point here, Fung You Lan point out, Dao is not transcending the world. It's the world. And the Confucian's Dao is, generally speaking, translated as the way. That means an instrument is use the Dao as a means to go to the higher purpose, which is benevolence or Ren. So that's the general difference between Confucians talking about Dao and the Taoists talking about Dao. That's the difference. So in the chapter 2, and also talking about the totality of the spontaneity of all things called Dao, and Dao is everywhere. So chapter 6, which talking about the religious and talking about the doing everything by doing nothing. And if you are familiar, that's called Wu Wei, okay, non-action. Basics, it's talking about Dao's function. So again, he talk about Dao. He talk about nothing. It's not equal to zero. It's the totality of everything. So I think that's a very important concept between nothing or emptiness, because a lot of translation or interpreter, including Chinese interpretation, were kind of mixed with Taoism, nothing or emptiness, with Buddhism, nothing and emptiness. They have the subtle difference, and then it's very difficult to separate them. But we need to separate if you are reading Taoism as a philosophy, because when Zhuang Zi or Lao Tzu writing their philosophies, Buddhism is not there. Well, Buddhism happened in India, but they know nothing about Buddhism. So that's the two different concepts. But it's very difficult for us, 2,300 years later, to separate these two concepts. But I just want to point out that that's an important difference. So another point is that Taoism destroyed the popular and the religious concept of God. So important thing is, even we talking about they have the religious Tao. Okay, religious Tao, they have the gods, the many different gods. Let's forget about religious Tao. Let's talk about philosophical Tao. And Steve asked the question about the metaphysical God. It doesn't have God, concept of God. So that's important in the philosophical Tao. There's no God here, unlike Western philosophy, when Plato or later even the Enlightenment philosopher, the God always have their own position, right? Even in Kant, it's God. He also talk about God. All the philosophers talk about, even William James want to talk about God. So in the Taoism basics, there's no concept of God. And then there's no concept God as a creator. So in this point of view, the Taoism is naturalistic philosophy. Okay, so that's about the Tao. And the second thing is 德, also important. So 德 is what an individual thing receives from Tao. So in this point of view, it's interesting to separate the 德 concept, this word 德, right? Usually we translate as virtue. But in Taoism, this word 德 basics is, you can say it's amoral, it's more on the more individual capability. So I have my own 德 and you have your own 德. That's no, it's individualized. Unlike Confucianism, they will talk about it as a common virtue we all need to follow. That's the difference. And then here, Fung You Lan used a good metaphor. He talked about between 德 and the Tao, right? It's just like between water in the river or lake. That's 德. And if you talk about water in general or water itself, you can say that's Tao. Okay, so that's the difference. And I like to quote on the Tao Te Ching, which is produced 200 years before Zhuang Zi, and the Tao gives the life, 德 raise them, and matter give them space, condition. Sometimes we translate as 是 is another concept, complete for them. Okay, so basics, the Tao Te Ching is talking about Tao, 德, matter, and condition. That's the totality of this world. There's no place for God. So that's the first concept Fung You Lan point out this one. So Steve, please.
Just a question. I never made this connection before because I probably have never heard pronounced correctly. In the title Dao De Ching, is that Dao and the same De? Is that the same?
Yes, that's the Dao.
Oh, I never made that connection before.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the yeah. So, Frank, please.
SHI here, is that the same as XI in English?
Which one? This one?
Yes.
No. Okay, this one, you are not in the art world reading, right? So I realize that art world use this word a lot called 是. Okay, there's many translation, and then we probably need to spend a lot of time to explain this concept. Basically, you can say that's the situation, that's something, the trend. Okay, so there's many ways to talk about this one, but it's not XI, it's not Qi, it's 是. Okay, pronounced as 是. If you read Art of War, if you read the Chinese legalism, 韩非子, this word is important because you are occupy certain position. Okay, that's called 是. If you put a rock on the mountain, right, on the mountain top, that's the 是. You are in that position. You just release the rock will fall down. That's powerful. So that's kind of concept. And then I believe Steve, when you talk about go, I don't know, do you use the concept of 是?
No, I do not.
Okay, so when my grandpa taught me, they talk about 是. Okay, when you lay out, and that's the 是. Okay, that's important. So you have to make sure, because when you play Go, how do I know you are winning and losing without detailed calculation? Okay, you just look at the 是. Okay, the situation, potential. Okay, so that's my grandpa told me. So
that's interesting. Yeah, most of the vocabulary we use is Japanese, so I don't know as many Chinese terms.
No, because I'm from Taiwan, basics they all trained in the Japanese way. So but basics, I was told, like, don't look at the small area, this piece, look at the 是. Okay, then
now I understand exactly what 是 means.
You know what I mean. Okay,
yes.
Great. So Okay, so since we talk about Tao and De, that's the most important thing in the Taoism philosophy. So second part we are talking about is theory of letting alone, and I will call this one is Taoist. It's both for Zhuang Zi and Lao Tzu, Dao De Jing. That's important political theory, which is letting alone. So that's very important. And then the proper way would be called wu wei, non-action. And then if you want to, in today's word, we will call it less interference. Okay, don't interfere too much. So the theory is this: everything has its own de, okay, the virtue. Remember, that's different than Confucius thinking. Confucian would say, we have a common de, okay, a few things, then we need to follow. Then that's the society. We will have a stable, harmonized society. That's a Confucius thinking. But Taoism thinking would be different. They said, they think everything has its own de, or you want to translate as virtue. So everything has its own proper nature. Everything is happy. Follow its nature is happy. If it's allowed to be in accordance with its own nature, they will be happy. So though there is a great difference between these two, okay, so here, Fung You Lan is talking about in chapter 1, okay, just the story about the big bird, small bird, okay. So the nature has seen very different. Big bird, you know, you can fly from the North Pole to the South Pole, but the small bird, when they fly, just only like, you know, 1 feet, and they think I fly long. So they all very different, and then both are happy. So that's they want to prove. Okay, everything has its own virtue. They do their own. So every modification of nature is the cause of pain and the suffering. And this concept even important today when we talk about environment, right? We change the nature. Most people will modify the nature, and even their intention may be good, but what they consider to be good may not be considered good by others. So I probably will include this story on the chapter 18. So they have many stories. You know, my own good may not be your own good. I think everyone probably can think about this kind of case, right? But chapter 18, they talk about seabird. Okay, so flew to inland, and the people want to treat the seabird very well. They have a good intention, but eventually you kill the seagull, right? Richard, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I'm wondering why there's a separation between Tao and Te, because it's one thing. The being is the doing is the being. It's one movement. It's not like separate. You can't separate the expression of Tao from the Tao itself. The Tao is operating. The Tao is moving, acting. So I don't know, to give it a word, another word is to cause some kind of like separation. It's like a mental thing. It's one thing. In truth, the Tao is Te and Te is Tao. It's the same. It's one movement.
Thank you for your sharing, and I totally respect your idea, and I have nothing to argue against it. Okay, I just have to say that's the way Lao Tzu doing this way, and the first how many chapter? 40 chapter, 37 chapter is called basically talking about Tao, and the second part talking about De, and the Fung You Lan make the metaphor. Tao is kind of like water, De is like river, water in the river, set some guidance, and the Tao is common for everyone. De is separate, different person. You and me, birds, monkey, they all have different De. That's the concept. If you think, oh, they should be the same, yeah, some people may think this. Clean, please.
I was actually thinking about the distinction between Tao and Te, just like Richard. And I also see Robert also gave a comment in the chat. So would that be too much of a stretch to compare that to as an analogy, maybe not a perfect analogy, but to compare that sort of to the Hinduist distinction between Brahman and Atman, where Te may be viewed as a sort of like an individualized Tao that, you know, maybe like a conditioned one, but having the same nature?
Yeah, I do think in this way. You know, I do think about it. I see De as like a Brahman, okay, and then and then Dao kind of like a Brahman, and then De kind of Atma, individual Atma. But it's a slightly different. But I do see this one. But again, this one basics is important thing is when you read this one, you learn this one. Important thing is not you accept what the text said. It's not you agree with Jason, me say. Okay, I think the important thing is you have your own question. I think that's, and then you have your own opinion. I think that's my purpose, and that's probably the highest way of learning. That's I see. So we have Kwang and Key.
Yes, yes, I think that the rapprochement with Brahman and the concept of Tao is very interesting. If you think that Brahman in Sanskrit means infinite, okay? So in the concept of Tao, you have that undertone of infinite, formless, and a noumenal reality. And Te sometimes is translated not as a virtue, but as power. So it's a part of that infinite that is embodied in a certain definite power or definite form, if you want. And maybe here, maybe it's a little bit far-fetched, but once again, we can go back to the timeless form of Plato, which is infinite, and the specific forms in phenomenal reality or phenomena. I stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Kwang. Yeah, I think that would be my later part. I will talk about this one because Fung You Lan also talk about this concept. The infinite is expressed in the finite. Okay, so you know the eternal expressed in the temporal. So this kind of concept. Thank you for sharing. So let me move on to the third part. Okay, so here I put again. I put the red text. That means Guo Xiang. Guo Xiang is on the 2nd century, which is about 500 years after Zhuang Zi, and he is a great commentator. So a lot of Zhuang Zi, he compiled Zhuang Zi and they put a lot of comment on that. So that's why I try to separate different people. That's why it's welcome to everyone disagree, have a different opinion, because through the history, everybody have a different opinion. So I try to put a different color to show that different persons comment. So here I put the red, that means Guo Xiang's comment. So we talk about Dao and the De, and then we talk about the letting alone. Okay, that's the political view. So the same political view you can apply is on personal life, right? How are you going to live the personal life? So that comes with another important concept in Zhuang Zi. That's how the art of living, right? So basically, we always in the place of safety, and then let me see. Okay, let's read the Guo Xiang's comment on this one. Perfect man is kind of like, if you want to compare with Confucian, Junzi, the gentleman. Okay, so kind of the moral, the ideal situation. So he talked about important thing is the perfect man is useless to others, but everything is useful to itself. So here, the perfect man is free from harm of human world and always receive the real benefit. This is who is awkward in his virtue. That's Guo Xiang's comment. So he talked about let your knowledge stop. Okay, that's how you live, which will be very different than confusion or most of people thinking about knowledge. So he talked about let your knowledge stop at what you do not know. Let your ability to stop at what you cannot do. Use what is naturally useful. Do what you spontaneously can do. Act according to your will within the limits of your nature, but have nothing to do with what is beyond it. So if you think through this one, I just don't, at least I don't read this way like, oh, I just be lazy, I don't study because I know, I don't know. But basics, he tried to tell you attitude. You study, you do something, but you make sure do it within your own limit. Okay. So you may ask, like, challenge yourself. Okay. The sky is the limit. So that's not the concept Zhuang Zi or Taoist want to say. Okay. How to challenge yourself? That's another big question, right? But his point, Zhuang Zi and Guo Xiang, or the Taoist point, is you only can learn and you should know where to stop learning. Okay. To the point, you need to know how to stop, where to stop. When you act, you have to know what's your limit. Don't go over. Don't go over is not only bad for you and also bad for the world, to this world, because what you think is good may not be good for other people. Just like before, we think we can, let's say 100 years ago, I remember when I was in primary school, I remember the textbook teach us the resources of Earth is unlimited. So what we have explored today is just like the skin, just like the skin of an apple. So when I was learning, of course, that's like 50 years ago, this teacher tried to teach me, you should explore, okay, abuse, or try to take all the advantage of the natural resources. But today we have a different concept. We should preserve, we should don't abuse the natural resources. So I think this kind of concept is Zhuang Zi or Taoism try to say, no, you don't go to extreme, and you should always do it within the limit. I think that's the thing. At least I learned this way. So after this one, we will go to the next one. Is nature flow, because when you talk about how to live, then you need some theoretical foundation. And basically, this concept, equality of thing, is basics in Zhuang Zi's chapter 2. Right? Basically, he talked about, I think the important thing is, although there are infinite number of difference between things in different aspects, but all are right and good. So the different opinion, same as the different opinion in the human world. So there will be in the chapter 2, okay, and Zhuang Zi talking about the story about all these different noises. Okay, he talked about the noise of heaven, noise of earth, that's the natural noise, and the noise or music of man. They all different way. So in Zhuang Zi's opinion, human world is not only the degree different from the bird's noise. So you have your opinion, I have my own opinion, and then he called it the music of man. They are equally right and good. There's no good or wrong, just like the birds singing, the wind blowing, you hear the noise, or you want to call it the music. There's nothing so-called good or bad or beautiful or ugly. So that's in Zhuang's point of view. He wants to talk about the equality of things. So things are equal. Big birds, small birds, monkey, human, they are equal. Opinion, there's nothing about right or wrong. That's just different opinion. Okay. So the sages just amuse themselves with this variety of opinion, but do not quarrel with them. So the simple standard they simply stand at the center of the circle, as Zhuang Zi called it, to meet the infinite variety. They let the different opinion alone, and they themselves transcend them. Okay. So the concept he want to use is so-called 两行 or 两行, two courses at one. This one is on the, I think it's in chapter 2, right? So the story is simple, basics, talking about the monkey keeper. He gives the monkey in the 4 acorn in the morning, 3 acorn in the morning, 4 in the evening, and the monkey complained. So he decided to give the monkey 4 acorn in the morning and 3 in the evening. So basics, he still give out 7 every day. But monkey were happy. So Zhuang Zi used this example to say, actually, 3 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, 4 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, they are the same. But people may sometimes happy with this one, sometimes not happy with this one. So the ideal situation is let them exist both, you know. So he called this one 2 courses at once. So basically, he's talking about the good and the bad. There's no such thing good and bad. Different opinion, just let them exist together. Just live as is. So I don't want we think about this one as kind of like find the golden mean in between, compromise. Okay, I think this one is, if you want to pick the concept in the Western philosophy, I think the Sextus Empiricus, right? He talked about the suspension of judgment, aporia, this kind of concept. You don't make a judgment, just let 2 concepts exist together. Don't see the difference. I think that's the way Zhuang Zi tried to explain. And especially he used the story of the monkey keeper to explain, you know, how he want to talk about this concept. So I will stop for question, comment now, if you have anything to say. So next, I'm going to move to another one. Since we already talked about how to live, the political, how to live, and the foundation of equality. So the next subject, right? Since we talk about big and the small, big birds, monkey, human, they are all the same. Okay. So we move to the virtual. There's no good, no bad, no beautiful, no ugly. So next concept naturally come with is life and death, right? So here, Zhuang Zi start to talk about in the universe, nothing can be said superior to others. You don't say you are the king, I'm the servant. You don't say I'm the master, you are slave. That's all equal. Okay. So they just have the different form of existence. And then, so there's no one is superior to the other one. In this case, the life is one form of existence. Death simply means that we have to give up the form of existence and to assume another form. If the form is good, the life is good. There's no reason to suppose the other forms are bad. So after you die, you go to the different world or different form of existence. Since this form is good, you cannot say the next or that one of the following choice are bad because we don't know. So why not just assume they all good? That's their concept of life and death. So this concept has been put a lot in, especially in chapter 6, the great teacher, because on the first part, they talk about death a lot. And Zhuang Tzu also used a lot of story to talk about this. So basically, he talk about to have attained to the human form is the source of joy, but the infinite evolution, there are thousands of other forms. They are equally good. What an incomparable bliss it is to undergo this countless transition. So you pass away, you just go to the different form. That's Zhuang Zi try to talk about. And here's another part I will put this one. Okay, he bring up Fung You Lan also like to bring up the concept of human bondage. And this one in chapter 3, right? The story is let me talk about this story a little bit, because the story is there's one guy, so-called that's Zhuang Tzu called the toeless guy. He has no toes. Usually during that time, if you commit some crime, and one of the punishment may be cut off your toes. So he went to see Confucius, toeless. Okay, he went to see Confucius because Confucius was a famous teacher. So Confucius say, "Oh, well, you don't know how to behave yourself. That's why you commit a crime, got a punishment." So toeless said, "No, I'm not here to confess that I made mistake. You know, I heard you are a great teacher. That's why I come here to see you." Then Confucius immediately realized, "Oh, I'm sorry, you know." And then, you know, is there anything you want to learn from me or something like this? Then Confucius start to tell his disciple, say, "Look at this guy, the tallest guy. He knows he made mistake, and he's still very brave to correct his own mistake and willing to learn. So you need to learn from these tallest people." So the tallest guy very, very disappointed, right? Because why he's disappointed? Because he saw Confucius as a famous teacher, he still stick with this right and the wrong, right? In the Taoist point of view, there's nothing right or the wrong, and for him, he lost the toes. It's not a big deal. Okay? That's just part of my body. And the Confucius always focus on the government give you the right thing, you violate, you do the wrong thing, you got the punishment. So this one, Fung You Lan called it human bondage. And the Chinese word they said, that's the common, they will consider the ancient, the man of God. That means the sage who were released from this bondage. And the bondage here is talking about is the virtue, the government, the society imposed on everyone. That's the bondage. So you not only you want to release from the death, okay, you also want to release relief from the society, the bondage society gives you, including social norm, rituals, and virtues. Okay. So that's the way you can live freely. That's the concept in Zhuang Zi. Any other comment, question, or agree, disagree, or before I move to the next one?
Yeah, I just want to say I think it's so interesting that the Confucius Tao and the Tao that we're talking about, I didn't realize they were so completely different. That there's like the Tao is like the original version, I guess, from what I'm understanding, is just completely, there's no good, there's no bad. And then I guess Confucius is really, I mean, then correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, is very concerned with harmonious living. So with that being said, there is kind of a good and a bad, there is a virtue. Was Confucius considered like, I mean, he's very much obviously well respected, but was that considered like very almost outrageous and like rebellious thinking in a way?
Okay, I think your answer are all correct, well, in my opinion. Okay, so let's put it this way. This book, Zhuang Zi, a lot of writing is writing against Confucius' teaching. Confucius was 200 years before him, so he has no chance to argue against Zhuang Zi. Let's put it this way. But later part, because Chinese society basis dominated by Confucianism, so that's why Zhuang Zi or Taoism is not that popular. And in my opinion, Confucius and Zhuang Zi are different. But again, you might find some people tell you they are the same. Okay, they may, from the story said, long time ago when here's Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, so-called, and he was the teacher of Confucius. Confucius ex-Lao Tzu, that's another story. They are from the same source. They should be the same. They are looking for harmony. So we will talk about later today. Okay, because later in the 10th, 11th century, the Neo-Confucianism movement basically try to consolidate the Taoism thinking and the Confucianism thinking. So it's very complicated. And then what you hear today, you can view as just my opinion. And they probably have many, many different opinions around there. So thank you for mentioning this. Katie, please.
Would it be accurate to say that there's no right or wrong, it just is? Would that be accurate?
There's no right and wrong. I will agree with you. In general, there's nothing right and wrong. That's it is. Just like my example, when I was young, and the teacher said, "Oh, you should explore the world with unlimited resources." I thought that's right, but right now we all know it's wrong. But who knows? 50 years later. So that's kind of my take on this kind of thing. So my action is anything good or bad, just do it within the limit. So Kwang and Steve.
Yeah, I think that the difference between the Tao of Confucianism and the Tao of Taoism is absolutely central to the Chinese thought, because the Tao in Confucianism is truly related to the political purposes of Confucianism. Okay, let's not forget that Confucianism, Ru Jia in Chinese, has been created by the Zhou royal court. And when Confucius said that he did not invent anything, but he was only the humble transmitter of the cultural legacy of the Zhou kings, or the kings of the dynasty of the Zhou dynasty, he was perfectly right, because the aim and the purposes of the two branches of the scholars of ancient China was not at all the same, because most of the philosophers who will be called later on in the West as Taoists, they were much more focused on personal development, if I may use that expression, for something having happened 25 centuries ago, or even 3,000 years ago. And the scholars that we nowadays call Confucianists and that the Chinese call the Ru, they were much more focused on political sovereignty and on the epistemological development to create in themselves personal qualities that would make them worthy rulers or worthy state advisors. So the motivation at the root were not the same at all. I stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Huang, for this one. When you talk about worthy, right? So that's just like, I'm not trying to say he's right, I'm wrong, or Tao is right. So up to you. You can decide, right? Confucius will say, make sure you are worthy. Okay. In another way, you are useful. You are useful for this society, for the common good. Taoism, that's dangerous to become useful. Okay. If you are useful, then a lot of story, like a big tree. Why the big tree can survive? Because totally useless. And for the good tree, grow fruit, people pick, good timber, people cut it. So if you want to live long, be useless. That's Taoism thinking, and which I believe Confucius will not be happy about this. Okay, Steve, please.
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar. I think Confucius was about governing in society and took the worldview that for society to operate smoothly, there is one sort of set of rules, one Tao that everyone should follow. That's how society works best. Whereas Taoism, like you were saying, Quan, is much more individualistic, and the worldview is society and everything will work very well if everyone follows their own Tao, their own way through the universe. So it's more individualistic.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Clint, please.
Yeah, to this discussion, I would add that perhaps, and that's my opinion, perhaps at the very source, at the original impulse for Confucianism and Taoism is the same, where everyone is able to identify what is good or what is best. But then I think where they differ is, what do you do with that, and how much effort and sacrifice do you want to spend to maintain the status quo? Because it's easy to agree on what is good and make a decision. It's probably fair to say that a reasonable Taoist would say, yeah, you know what, doing this is better than doing that, because this is more natural. It's more like something that belongs to a bird, so let's not make a bird into a human. So they would probably agree in the beginning, but then it almost seems like Taoist kind of leaves it at that for everybody to make their own conclusion and kind of live with their own nature. And Confucianism takes that almost in an artificial way, one step further or a couple of steps further, and saying, oh no, let's just build a whole system because it's going to help our society.
Yeah,
And
thank you, Clint. Yeah,
that's not necessarily right or wrong, but yeah, it's just a matter of perspective, I think.
So put this way, in the because on Tuesday we also in the Confucius analytic reading. So that one, okay, on Tuesday Confucius, we shall come with some consensus, agree on something. So here is more open. Okay, so basic, more individualized. So how do you think? That's up to you, because based on Zhuang Zi, there's no way I can judge. You are right, you are wrong. Okay, so no one can judge each other. So just, I think it's more fun this way. So, number 6, talk about immortality. Okay, this one is not from Fung You Lan. I put a purple. That's my view on that. I think that's important because Taoism, all the philosophy will talk about kind of immortality, especially in the Western philosophy, like immortality of soul. But I just want to make sure, we just mentioned the Taoism thinking, basic, there's no God. Okay. I'm not talking about religious Tao. I'm talking about philosophical Tao. Basically, no place for God. And they talk about immortality, but don't mix with Platonic or Christian immortality of soul, but it's a naturalistic view of life. Okay, so the idea is the immortality is without soul. Okay, without the soul. So how do they talk about Taoism talking about immortality? without talking about soul. That's the point here. Madeline, I see you have hands up, please.
Yes, I just thought I would comment on this if it's okay with you.
Please, please. Yeah, I'd like to hear what do you say? Yeah.
So Fung You Lan, he makes a big effort to correlate things in Taoism that people familiar with Western philosophy might understand.
Yes.
This immortality is not one of them. The concept of immortality that has gone through Western civilization and the big Judeo-Christian religions and everything. Basically, the ancient Greeks, their idea of it, I think of it as being like a bucket that is filled with something. So the body is filled with a soul, or formal logic gets filled in with specific things. So we have a whole world of sort of, if you think of like a tin bucket filled with sand, okay, and the sand is the soul. Taoism is not about this bucket theory. It's not about substance and essence. It's not about, the ideal and the real and all of that. It's very different from that. It's somewhat more like the pre-Socratics, in that the main thrust of it is a mixing of elements, a continual change. It can be fast, it can be slow, it can be big, it can be small, but this ongoing pivoting through of different substances in the world and different energies kind of intertwining. So it's more of a process religion than an object religion, the way that the Western religions are.
Thank you, Madeline. I think you said most of them, so thank you so much. Only thing I want to add is chapter 3, when Zhuang Zi talk about the famous story about the cooking, okay, and the very end he talk about our existence is like fire. Through the present, fuel is consumed, the fire is transmitted, and we know not when it's come to the end. That means it's endless, it's immortality. So basic, just like, think about just like a fire, right? The fuel or the candle will burn out, but the fire can continue on, endless. So that's the concept of mortality. Another way I see is similar to Hinduism. It's like a Brahman, right? I think one of the story talk about we are just the drop of water. So the water go to the ocean, or same as the clay, you can make a cup, make a porcelain, make a china, and then when you break it, then you go back to the earth. So naturalistic kind of type of immortality. So since when I die, my part will become, fertilizer for the tree, and the tree continue to live. That's kind of concept of immortality. So here we do the concept, and the 7, 8, 9, and the 10. Basically, that's a Fung You Lan want to talk about his own philosophy, his view on this one. So you may not, I think the first 1 to 6 probably everyone will say this way. Okay, anyone read Taoism will say this one. From 7 going on, that's just Fung You Lan's opinion. Some you agree, some you may disagree. I think that's totally fine for him. So number 7, he talked about pure experience. Basics, he is followed by William James, a posthumous published book called Essays in Radical Empiricism in 1912. Okay. So over there, basics, he I just kind of copy from the Stanford University, Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. have to talk about this paper. It's a little bit long. I didn't read it. Basically, he talked about the concept of pure experience. And what William James tried to resolve is the mind, body, or people, spiritual matter problem, because you know, in Western tradition, we have the two schools. One is from Kant, talk about a priori knowledge. You always have innate knowledge before you know the word. In the British side, you talk about empiricism or tabula rasa, right? You like a blank slate. You receive what you get. He tried to resolve this one. William James, he talked about pure experience. That means it's neither mental, neither physical. Okay, so that's the foundation of what we have. Okay, so he used example, the perception of chair. When you see a chair, you cannot just see the chair as a chair. You cannot stop thinking about the people sitting there, the function for the people. So it's a priori knowledge or empirical, you know, tabula rasa, we don't know. But William James want to call it a pure experience. Okay, that's the part Fung You Lan tried to bring up. So that's just my summary of William James' philosophy. And then Fung You Lan want to talk about is all knowledge is originated from the pure experience, mental and physical. This one from William James. So Taoism basically disparaging the knowledge, because knowledge makes distinction, while pure experience excluding. So one way you can say I add a priori knowledge. Okay, so Taoism look down the bias knowledge or prejudgmental basics. They want you, Taoism want you to receive knowledge without pre-concept. I think that's the key. And the concept here, you talk about bin and the pillow. They are identical. They're just one big piece of wood, right? You put in horizontal, you call it bin because you try to support the roof. But if you put the vertical, you call it a pillar or call it a column. They are identical, ugly and beautiful. Okay, they are the same. You know, some girl or man, you see is beautiful, but the other person will say ugly. But we all know, you know, the aesthetic, the concept of beauty changed through the history. So what is greatness, weakness, perverseness, strangeness, they all relative. Not only relative, is no fixed concept on that. So that's he try to bring up. So another one is they say no important thing is there's no separation of things. To say nothing of distinguish between subject and object, between the me and the non-me. Okay. So in the state of experience, there's nothing but what? The whole. So there's no subject, no object, no me, no non-me. So me and the non-me, this concept, I believe they will be very close to the Buddhism thinking. But again, here he mentioned about the subject object. That's why he bring the William James pure experience. And personally, I will suggest, well, that's my theory is similar to Martin Buber. If you're familiar with his theology, he talk about I and thou. He talk about the thing, but basically he's not talking about the worldview. He's more talking about the religions, how to know God. So he's talking about you don't know God through the relation of I, it. It should be I, thou, this kind of concept. So I feel this one has the similar way of what Taoism is talking about. So that's I want to provide for you. So that's just a thought about how do we know things, right? So that Fung You Lan think Taoism thinking is similar or very close to William James' pure experience. So we have Richard and Alex. Richard, please.
First of all, can I make a suggestion, Jason, that
Please.
for next time, because your voice, we can hear your voice, we can hear what you're saying, but it's just a little bit low.
Oh,
And
thank you.
maybe if
So how
you
about
can
now?
use, it's better. Yeah, it's
Okay,
better
okay.
when, like, that's what I was going to suggest, getting
Okay,
closer
thank
to
you.
the mic. Yeah, so that it's more clear so we can hear you better.
Thank you.
But it's okay the way it is, but it's just, I forgot my volume all the way up and sometimes I miss certain things. So it would be nice. So anyway, yes. So are we aware that it is the I, the me, the self, that is inventing the illusion of division and separation? And are we aware that we're under a delusion that we cannot live without it? That's why the brain body is clinging to the idea of an I, a me, a self. So can we snap out of it? Can the brain snap out of the hallucination, the dream world, right? And wake up to freedom. And then freedom can do the thinking, which then becomes coherent, rational, sane, holistic action. So, because otherwise, the brain body is trapped in illusion making. So you never see the bird, the cloud, the tree, your children. You never listen to music. You never taste broccoli. You don't know what it is, right? So what will, in other words, the question is, what will free the brain, right? The brain wants freedom. The brain needs freedom in order to function healthfully. So what will help the brain to break out of the prison of words, ideas, concepts, all these abstractions? Like we read all this, right? The Tao, right? And we say, I understand, right? Mentally, but we're not living it in our daily life, right? So maybe partially, maybe, a little bit here and there. But so what will make us actually live it?
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Richard. And then I think that we will cover on the 10th point. Okay. I think yeah, we will cover this part. And thank you for sharing how you think. And of course, I don't have a fixed answer, but that's a big question we all have to ask. Alex, please.
My question is, this pure experience, do you have the Chinese translation for this so I can better understand?
No, because this one pure experience is from William James. Okay. So okay, so that's why I say 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's Fung You Lan. He based as a Western. He studied Western philosophy, and when after he translate the Zhuang Zi, he kind of like thinking about, okay, that's the point the Western philosopher talking about. He bring up William James, he bring up Spinoza a lot, and that's what he want to talk about.
Yeah, and I'm quite confused about this one because, first it says, because knowledge makes distinctions while pure experience excludes it. But what about collective experience? I mean, if you see an elephant, if there's an elephant in the room and everybody says there's an elephant, for Taoism, you can refer that as something else, or you don't have to believe it. Also, second thing is, what about right and wrong? If somebody kills someone that you love or your family, do you not even make a distinction? I'm so sorry, I'm just a little bit confused. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's it's fine. You know, we all confused on this one, and that's the perennial question. Nobody knows how to answer. What's right, what's wrong, and actually that's what Zhuang Zi or Taoism philosophers try to talking about. And basics, you see an elephant, then you should not have a judgment on the elephant.
Yeah, but you see, I think it leads to chaos in society.
That's
let's say you know there's a war going on, and you don't know, you can make the distinction of who is right or wrong or whatever going on in society. You just go along as you wish, and if everyone does that, I think the society will become kind of chaos. I mean, it would be like a free thinking, free, nobody's right, nobody's wrong. But if somebody really does something bad, like killing someone else, like, you don't make a distinction about that.
Yeah, of course, I totally agree on what you are talking about. You need to do right and wrong. But Taoism will argue the other way. The chaos was caused by the right and wrong. Right? That's what they are going to argue. I think your argument is valid. So if you don't know right and wrong, I hit you, kill that guy, you gotta have the right and wrong. But the Taoism argument is that right and wrong cause the war. Right and wrong cause the argument. So of course, that's a circular argument. We probably don't.
Thank you. That's very interesting. Thank you.
So the common argument is, these people, they live in the warring state. They see China during the time a lot of war. Okay, make it simple. Confucius thinking would be, okay, we need to have the right and the wrong. That's the right thing. That's the wrong thing. What's the right thing? The ancient China, ancient time. They have the right thing.
Eat something before we go.
So Taoism thinking about, because you keep talking about right and wrong. That's why people always think they are right and other people are wrong. That's why you have a problem. So yeah. I think that's the
I think it sounds like a very detached
view. So, we have no way to resolve the question because it's already been many thousand years, and not only in China, also in any place in this world. But that's a philosopher is doing. We can talk about anything without taking any responsibility. That's a good thing. Madeline, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I wanted to address a question that had been raised earlier about what seems to be such a contrast between Taoism and Confucianism. Mm-hmm. I had come across a section in a book that really illuminated it for me, and I thought other people might find it helpful. It's in the introduction in the Roger Ames translation of Sun Tzu, with The Art of Warfare. So he says, I put this. So he says that in the world of classical China, instead of starting abstractly from some underlying unifying and originating principle, in other words, like God, we begin from our own specific place in the world. Without objectivity, objects dissolve into the flux and flow, and existence becomes a continuous, uninterrupted process. Each of us is invariably experiencing the world as one perspective within the context of many. So one interprets the world, the order of the world around one, as contrastive, thises and that's, this person and that person, more or less proximate to oneself. So all human relationships are continuous, from ruler and subject to friend and friend, relating everyone as an extended family, in quotation marks. Similarly, all things, like all members of a family, are correlated and interdependent. Everything is what it is at the pleasure of everything else. I'm just going to skip through. There is no essential defining feature, no divinely endowed soul, rational capacity, or natural locus of rights. So this is Western philosophy that makes all human beings equal. In the absence of such equality that would make us essentially the same, the various relationships that define one thing in relation to another tend to be hierarchical and contrastive. So it sounds a lot like Confucianism. More noble or more base, harder or softer, stronger or weaker, more senior or more junior. So now we're back in Taoism. Change in the quality of relationships between things always occurs on a continuum as movement between such polar opposites. And the general and most basic language for articulating such correlations among things is metaphorical. So I won't keep going, but I found it really helped me to understand the link between Taoism and Confucianism.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and that would be very interesting. Okay, so I think that it is more like myself. Okay, personally, I understand Taoism through what is not Confucianism, and understand Confucianism through what's not from the criticize of Taoism thinking. So we all have a different way to understand it, and thank you for sharing this text. Joe, please.
Just a point of clarification. I just was curious to know, on the one slide, it was knowledge breaks things up into parts. You just had it up. And I was wondering if that's in Taoism something that's similar to the I-it relationship. And then the experience would be more the I-thou relationship. As far as is that a way of thinking about it?
I would think about just opposite. I would say Taoism thinking was more is the I-thou relationship. Okay, so
right, it's an experience, right? So the idea of it, so the experience is an I-thou, whereas the knowledge that you had on the one slide that you just had up, that's the I-it.
That's right.
Because you're automatically just looking at what is factually in front of you as opposed to actually understanding. Like, okay. I just wanted to point it further.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Kwang, please.
Okay, so I would like to introduce something that is, according to my understanding, is the relationship between Confucianism and Taoism. Because, and maybe I don't have the pretensions to say that my answer would cover all forms of Taoism, but only the kind of philosophical Taoism that we are speaking today with Zhuang Zi. Let's not forget that Zhuang Zi was a scholar that was at the apex of the scholarly tradition in China 24 centuries ago. What do I mean by that? I mean that at the beginning of his life, he was studying the cultural tradition of his country, the scholarly tradition of the scholars of his time, and he was creating that book called the Chuang-tzu, which for me is the apex of the scholarly tradition. What do I mean? If we go back to the paragraph 2.4 of the Analects by Confucius, he was explaining in 6 steps the evolution of the mind of someone, okay? And at the 4th step, he would say that at 50 years old, I'm capable to hear the will of heaven. At 60 years old, I'm capable to hear the will of heaven without complaining. And at 70 years old, I'm capable to do what I want without overstepping the universal laws. The 5th and the 6th lines evokes tremendously Taoist principles. What do I mean by that? This kind of philosophical Taoism is like the apex of the Confucianist epistemological development, meaning that there's no wrong, there's no right, there's no ugly, there's no ugliness, there's no beauty. Well, you get to that kind of attitude in life when you are at the apex of your personal growth and of your epistemological development. Meaning, if I want to go back to Confucius, the line 5 and the line 6 of paragraph 2.4, okay? I hear the will of heaven without complaining. I can do what I want without overstepping the universal laws. So for me, philosophical Taoism, okay, I'm not speaking of all Taoism, philosophical Taoism, the Taoism which has been created by the scholars, is simply the supreme achievement of Confucianism. I stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Kwang. Okay, so first you promote the Confucianism. So Taoism is the highest achievement of Confucianism. Okay, and that's exactly I want to put on this 8th point, activity and tranquility. Okay, so yeah, of course, then on the surface, okay, I'm not saying I totally agree with Kwang. We can have like another 3 hours argument on this one, but let's stop here. Kwang made really a good point, right? If you take a Confucius point of view, the different level of understanding. To Confucius, to the certain 50 years old, you know the mandate of heaven. The 60 years old, everything is, well, depend on how you interpret. 70 years old, you can do everything as I want. Never make mistake. So that's the situation of Taoism talking about. Zhuang Zi talking about. Nothing right and the wrong. High, that's the highest. Same thing. Okay, here we talk about this one. We talk about activity and the tranquility. This one basics has been focused on the near Confucian, right, on the 1100 AD. Okay. So they try to consolidate Confucianism and the Taoism. And it's just like exactly what Kwang just talking about. Basics, the Taoism, Confucius is the highest point of Taoism philosophy. So that's the metaphysical start to develop. So in this point of view, Kwang is absolutely right. If you take the 1100, this moment, that's the achievement. But if we talk about Zhuang Zi, the book itself, Zhuang Zi is probably will not agree with Kwang during that time. But in the 1100s time, that's the time Confucius and the Zhuang Zi, they kind of like talking about the same thing here. So here, I try to finish the other 3 slides. Okay, so we will cover everything. So that's the activity and tranquility. You will see these 2 things are opposite, but they try to put activity within tranquility. So this one is the high point in Chinese philosophy. They try to combine the Taoism thinking, Confucian thinking, and plus the flavor of Buddhism philosophy. So we will talk about this one, and then I have been talking this one for, I think, for a few times on this subject, that's Neo-Confucians. I will quickly go through the rest, then we will have some time to discuss. Freedom, I think we mentioned about, Richard mentioned about brand, freedom. So I would like to everyone to think about this situation, and I think that's very important, but not being focused in Chinese tradition. It's about freedom, absolute freedom. Zhuang Zi's philosophy, just like Richard just mentioned, this world, and you have a brand, but you live in this world, you are small compared to the entire nature, but actually you are free. Okay. Basics is he's talking about you are independent from outside, so you contain. That's is freedom. That's the point he's talking about. So since you talk about freedom, you talk content. I think number 10 is very important.
Also uninfluenceable.
Okay, thank you.
Also uninfluenceable.
So number 10.
Immovable.
Immovable. Okay. Yeah. So when we talk about freedom, right? So we talk about here, I think Fung You Lan bring up a very important point. And then when I talk about Zhuang Zi, a lot of people ask about the content, right? So the example is, I'm poor, I don't jealous the rich people, I just live whatever I have. And if I'm being suppressed, I just follow the rule, I pursue the happiness myself. No, the answer is no. Zhuang Zi is not talking about this. And then Fung You Lan quote a paper from Bertrand Russell. He calls it a free man's worship. And then Russell, this paper, Bertrand Russell, this paper basics talking about how do we behave virtually, freely, without war, without God. Because during that time, the early 20th century, basics, most of people don't believe God, the real existence of God. And he want to talk about, Bertrand Russell want to talk about how to live in this world without God. And here he talking about the Oriental subjection. So Fung You Lan, I put blue here, he make it very clear. This one is seeming passivity of Taoism. It's not Oriental subjection. That means it's not I content what I have and I don't complain. Basically, he's talking about emancipation. It's a free man's worship. That's Bertrand Russell is talking about. And then Fung You Lan like to mention another thing is Spinoza. Think about Spinoza's worldview and Zhuang Zi or Taoism worldview. They all think about naturalistic. They all believe this world is deterministic. But how can we live in this deterministic world and still free? So Fung You Lan's comment is here. He's talking about this philosophy with the equality of things, thinking. The infinite can be expressed in the finite world. The concept of infinity can be expressed in the finite. The eternal expressed in the temporal. Okay, so I think that's his word about the freedom and about this worldview of Taoism worldview. So I will draw the final conclusion. I think that's clean talking about Hegel. I think here, I think that's very important. And then Fung You Lan also talking about Zhuang Zi doesn't make it clear on this point. Because when we talk about back to nature, okay, we mix about two things. So that's why Fung You Lan quotes Hegel about the harmoniousness, okay, from the childhood. It's the first harmony. But there's a second harmony. You need some effort, some practice to achieve. Even they are the same, but you need some effort to achieve the second harmony. I think that's what Fung You Lan want to talk about. And I do agree, I very agree on this part, because just like when Zhuang Zi talk about knowledge, talk about doing without beyond your capability. Knowing, don't go beyond what you need to know. It doesn't mean you are a baby, you are a child, you don't learn anything, that's all I can do. I think he is talking about is the second harmony. It looks like you are going back to your childhood, but actually, this going back to childhood is through some effort, okay, through some philosophical thinking. Then you can go back to childhood. We all remember, most of people probably all think the childhood life, back to childhood life is happy. Okay. I assume most of people have a happy, I do, but you know, most of people, I assume. So I want to be happy, go back to childhood. Because I already grow, I getting old, but I need some effort to achieve the second harmonious, which is not which is nature, but you have to go back with some effort. So I think I will stop here. I'm sorry to overtime a little bit. Okay, so then that's extended for 15 minutes, so we can have some discussion. And, don't forget, next week Kwang is going to talk about Chinese history, and of course we will have some philosophy running into this discussion. And, okay, let's open some questions. I will have Alex and Robert, please.
Actually, I actually want to bring in this big picture, add on to everything that we talk about. The big picture of Taoism. The very first line says 道可道，非常道. And I want to refer this, which means, you know, the way things are works in a mysterious ways. And I want to refer to, I'm actually surprised Fung You Lan did not mention Wittgenstein. Okay, because the limits of my language means the limits of my world. And that is actually a major concept in Taoism. As in the first line, it says, everything works in a mysterious ways. And because of its, and also Taoism talks about the limitation of language. And therefore, anyone who tries to like explain anything, I mean, of course, you know, we're discussing right now, but it's just the concept of Taoism is so that because things are in a mysterious way, and there's no way that we can actually understand how everything works, you know, experience the world, our life. It would be wrong. It would be kind of wrong. Maybe it's not wrong, but it would be kind of a mistake or kind of waste of time to try to define everything to its core, because, you know, the Tao is in a mysterious way, and that no one really knows. And with the limitation of the language, you know, just by translating Zhuang Zi to English already has its limitations, right? So I really want to bring this big picture, kind of like, you know, the big background of Taoism, to share with everyone that just be careful, you know, and keep that in mind, that this not really, you know, that's a big part of Taoism, that it recognizes the limitation of language, and that language and our experience cannot be fully expressed. Or
yeah, thank you, Alex. Yeah, well, nothing to agree or disagree, but I just want to some defend for Fung You Lan. First, this book is written based on Zhuang Zi's book, and Zhuang Zi and Lao Tzu, Dao De Jing, has some subtle difference. So that's why he didn't paint the big picture. He said, the Dao ke Dao, Fei Chang Dao. The Dao can be said, it's not the constant Dao. The name can be named, it's not real name. So that's the reason he limits on the Zhuang Zi thinking. Wittgenstein, of course, I think that you make a very good point. And then Fung You Lan's study, I know he studied, you will see the person he quote, he like to quote Spinoza, he like quote William James a lot, because he is studied from Columbia with Zhang Dui.
Okay.
Pragmatism, American philosophy. So that's a little bit
different.
Okay. And yeah, so I think that's the reason. Okay, but
I see some relations with Wittgenstein and Zhuang Zi and a lot.
Yeah, that's depending on how you read it, and some people will say the Heidegger, you know, doing a lot related to Lao Tzu, and in a way you can see it's always unfair to say, oh, Zhuang Zi say something is exactly what Spinoza say something.
Right.
That's not the right thing to say, but it's proper way, the way I bring it, other philosopher, especially Western philosophy, is the way try to help people understand, or help myself understand what
Right.
Zhuang Zi saying. There's no way to say Zhuang Zi is the same. He said this one, freedom is the same as Spinoza talking about it. I only can say, if you think about Spinoza's freedom, that could be the same flavor to understand what Zhuang Zi talk about freedom.
Right, right.
Anyway,
I actually think more about Wittgenstein because the limitation of language and the experience. Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
that's right. And then that's the purpose of this meetup, because I think we should generate more questions than answer more. Right? That's the purpose. We have Robert and Steve. Robert, please.
Yeah, first I want to say thank you very much. That was awesome. It was super cool. I'm glad I got to listen to this beginning intro, because I feel like I'd be very lost if I missed this.
Then you can continue to study the 7th chapter by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I like this idea of the second harmony, because it seems like the second harmony is basically just unlearning everything, because you're given that first harmony. So that pursuit of labor and of the spirit is just basically unlearning everything and kind of returning to that first harmony.
Yeah, it sounds like Zhuang Zi or Taoist philosopher, Chinese didn't talk about this. Okay, they just kind of assume, So I think that's a good point. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
I also was thinking, because it seems like the original Tao is very like, because all we can experience is ourselves, and so it's very concerned with the individual, right? Because that's all you can really do, is to live within your Tao and live in as true as you can to your nature. I wonder if it's ever been compared in a way. This is a really weird comparison, but like to like a view of Ayn Rand's kind of like, because Ayn Rand is like, it's all that like selfishness and your desires are good, which seems like almost like a dark side of Tao. Do you see like an interesting comparison there? Is that resonate in any way?
Well, I think a lot of time I will call it a straw man's argument, because you will say, okay, see, you do this way, you are selfish, you to take, you can do this way, okay. But of course, that's a way you can think this way. But another way you can think about is you respect your own desire, okay. Everyone like you, I don't know, everybody want to show the beautiful picture on the Facebook. Okay, I don't want to do it. Okay, and so something like this. But of course, through the years, people argue. And there's one thing, historical. Well, there's some scholar talking about this one. I don't want to bring too much, but basics. Zhuang Zi is another philosopher, so the same person, okay, called Yang Zhu, okay, who is talking about taking care of myself, then the world will be peaceful, something like this. I don't want that. It's very controversial, but it's really have some scholar talking about this. So they started from, if everyone taking care of themselves, okay, everyone taking care of myself, mind your own business, this world will be peaceful, okay. So don't interfere other people. Tell people that's the wrong thing, do the right thing. So it's constantly I have the debate on this one. Again, my point is, since we all talk, we don't do real thing. So be free to think about what you think that's a real idea, because nothing going to change. So
I totally agree with what you're saying too. I just was wondering if, like, playing devil's advocate.
I like this environmental, because we can talk this one, and then as long as we are respectful, we just enjoy the time, and after time up, we go back to our regular weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Forget about these things.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, anyway, thank you, and we have a pretty good discussion. Then we have Steve, please.
Yeah, I have a language question at least.
Okay.
So you got me thinking about the title, Tao Te Ching, and Okay, so now that I'm making the connection that the de is the same de, so I have a concept, a definition for Tao. I have a concept, a definition for de. I know there's a concept Qing, though I don't think I know what the definition is. I wouldn't mind you defining that for me. Well, my question is the title. Is it a list of 3 things? Or in Chinese, does that make a sentence? Does that, what is the title Tao Te Ching mean?
That means Jing means the book or classic book. Okay. So that means the book talking about Tao and the De. Okay. So
Okay.
the Chinese. And usually Chinese book title doesn't have much meaning. If you read the analects, you will find out even funny. Each chapter, they just pick up the first 2 words. Okay. So probably traditional Chinese not.
A title is essentially a list of the things I'm about to talk about.
Yeah, but it not care because but today we may think about find a sexy title so we know what's the because that's a business thinking. But I believe during that time, probably people don't think this way. So just
very interesting.
Yeah, so that's just my opinion. But
yeah,
because if you read the analect, you will find out even funny because each chapter they have the title. You don't pick up the essence, what's the most important or most shocking message. No, they just pick up the first 2 words. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, CK, please.
I think historically, the significance of Taoism belongs in the category of being one of the 3 main strands of thought that influence Chinese intellectuals, administrators, governors, and scholars. Mm-hmm. The 3 strands being Confucianism, Taoism, and lastly Buddhism. So to quote Karl Marx, religion is the opiate of the people, but it is also the sigh of the oppressed masses. So in the case of Taoism, let's take the religion part away. It acts historically as the sigh of the oppressed intellectuals or the oppressed scholars or the oppressed administrators who did not get their way or did not have the chance to adopt their Confucianist strand to govern or to better society. So when they are not as successful, Taoism serves as a palliative to assuage their egos or their unfulfilled ideals. So the significance of Taoism in one way can be looked at from that perspective. That's just what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I know you think about, and probably most of the people may think about this way. And another way to talk about is Monday to Friday. The weekday is Confucianism, and the weekend is Taoism. Personally, I totally against this concept because I don't see this way. I think Taoism is a very positive view and a very freedom. Because of course, we try not to argue on who is right, who is wrong. I just want to express majority will agree CK's point of view, and that's a lot of scholars talk about this. And personally, Jason, I disagree on this one because I think Taoism is not doing it the weekend. In other ways, I would prefer 5-day working as a Taoist and a 2-day work as Confucianism. And I would prefer when I was successful and I still practice Taoism. That's my point. Kwang and Alex, and we probably need to finish today. Anyway,
okay.
Thank you very much. And we have a lot of disagreement, and then that's the essence of Taoism. So, Kwang, please.
Well, I think that CK and Jason gave very interesting answers about the positions of Taoism. Okay, because once again, I repeat myself, I still think that Taoism is a product of scholars. Okay, so the scholars in general in ancient China as a group, they were not an oppressed group as a group. Okay, they were at the top of the society. And I agree the fact, and I still maintain my general idea that a true philosophical Taoism is the supreme achievement of Confucianism. And I hope that I would say it in a funny way, okay? It's like the relation between capitalism and socialism, okay? You cannot get socialism if you are not capable to make money, meaning you have to start by capitalism. So you have to start by simple things in Confucianism, and at the end of your pathway, you will be capable to hear the will of heaven without complaining, and doing what you want without overstepping the universal laws. But I would say that it's true that for those who did not reach to the high epistemological levels, Taoism has been wrongly used as a kind of consolation in case of failures. But I would agree to say that it's not the true goal of Taoism. The true goal of Taoism is really to go to, I can do what I want without overstepping on the universal laws, but sadly, it also has been used as a kind of consolation. I stop here.
Okay, thank you very much. Right now, everyone will have 3 different opinions on Taoism. So that's good. We will have the final judgment.
Actually, I have been thinking about the same question since I was reading the Tao of Pooh. Actually, it's a great book, and I can simplify this in a very simple way. Confucianism is how Chinese people organize our relationships with others, okay? With your father, with your superior, and such. Taoism is your attitudes about life. Would you agree with that, Jason?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, and that's it. That's all I have to say. And then one last thing about Buddhism. Buddhism is a human spirituality, because every human being should have a spiritual calling, because every day we constantly ask ourselves where we come from, and Buddhism is the kind of like the answer in the Chinese society that gives the spirituality. When you have a spiritual calling, that's what it is. So it's quite clear and simple. That's my.
Okay, great. We need to stop here, and then the best is to leave the question open, and then that would be great. So we can continue to discuss, and during the debate, disagreement, we all improve ourselves, I believe. CK, you have hands up. I have you have the last word, and you can talk a little bit about what you want to talk about the Gu Hong.
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking about this question. To agree to disagree is the mark of a gentleman, whether you are Confucian or not. But to agree to disagree is a mark of a distinction. Regarding what I'm going to talk about on December 16, I'm trying. Whether the attempt will succeed or not depends on pure luck. To present the travails of a eccentric, interesting intellectual of the mid-19th century and early 20th century by the name of Mr. Gu Hongming. He has a lot to, he is interesting to me because of his eccentricities and because of what he demonstrates as what he thought was superior Chinese civilization to the rest of vis-a-vis Western civilization. He has some ability and some merit to what he's saying because he has been educated completely in the West. And he's really a Western educated intellectual who later on decided to become Chinese. So that itself is an interesting odyssey. which I thought maybe of some interest to the audience here.
Yeah, I think that's I think I read some of his translation, right? He did a few translation, right, on the yeah. Okay, we talk about this one. Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone, and then we will see you next week. And the Kwang, we're talking about the.
Thank you very much. Very enjoyable.
Okay, thank you, and
Thank you, Jason.
see you next week.
This was great.
Thanks.
All right.